Back in 5, 4, 3.
I cannot tell you people how much I have been looking forward to our next guest. My man, my guy, Nick Baumgardner. Now, I can say many of his sports takes I agree with. I'm like, man, Nick made a great point. I didn't see that angle. I'm really, really, I'm really, really fulfilled by reading his take on this. And then I saw some of his draft takes. And I said, you know what? We got to get
Okay,
Nick on. we got to get Nick on from The Athletic, covering the Lions, covering the draft. And we're going to break it down this morning as this is NFL draft week. Normally a Super Bowl feel because this is the height for Lions fans most years, but that's not the party that we're going to anymore as Lions fans, it seems. So Nick joins us this morning. Nick, how are you?
Great, Sam. How are you? I mean, I'm sorry I missed you guys last week. My calendar completely killed me. I have no
Hey,
idea what
man.
happened, but anyway, yeah.
Hey, you
Glad to
got
be here.
kids, you got a job. I mean, you got a lot of things that you're working on, right?
A
So
lot
I
of
get it.
stuff happening. Yeah, we're
I
good.
get it. So let's just start there with the different tone
Mm-hmm.
of this sort of draft for the Lions. Still big,
Right,
another top 10 pick, but this is not the pinnacle, seemingly
right,
anyway, for the Lions this year, like it seems like it has been for hell most of my lifetime.
right. That's such a great point. Like, it usually feels like this boom or bust Super Bowl type. We're either. I said this last week on our show. Like, it feels usually like the fans will tell us like we're either going to be like over the moon happy or devastated after the first round because something's going to happen that we've pinned all our hopes and dreams on it. And it's like that's not really what this is. This feels more like when you talk to fans of like the Ravens or teams that are like really good all the time. And you're like, they're in a good spot. They're in a good spot to play the board, and you trust the staff because the most important thing is like usually Lions fans go into a draft having no idea what curveball or whatever is going to get thrown at them, from the draft staff. This has been 2 cycles of Holmes' staff being like as logical as you can get. So I think the confidence is much better, and I also think the nitpicking is getting higher too because I'm getting a lot more. I'm getting a lot more of that from people, but I like it. It's been good. It's been a good discussion with people this cycle.
Initially, my concern as a Lions fan was I'm not sold on any of these quarterbacks being a
Right,
star in the NFL.
right.
That's just my personal opinion. I think there's some really, really,
Yeah,
really good
same
ones.
here.
I
Yep.
happen to think that CJ Stroud is the safest of all those picks, but I don't want him because I feel like Jared Goff is good
Yeah.
enough to win with still in the prime of his career. Do you sense covering the Lions that is indeed their take?
I think so, and I think that that's what they probably land on the same thing. Like Bryce is probably the best guy here, but again, like, is he a star? Like, is he a guy that you'd trade your life for? Would you mortgage your future? And I would say no, I wouldn't. Even though I think he's probably closest to ready, and I would say I would agree with you too, Sam, that I think CJ as a passer, I think he will get better at some of the things that he lacks right now, and I think he will be a good player. But like right now, it's going to be I don't know, and I think Goff conceivably has 2 or 3 more years that were whatever close to what we saw last year. I think he's got a couple more left. I don't think you have to do this right now. And if next year comes and suddenly we're talking about something different and he has a horrible season, okay, but that's not what they're not going to do that. They're not going to make decisions based on what if, then. It's going to be, well, we need to see it first and then we'll make the decision. So that's sort of where I land on it. The whole quote Holmes gave back in winter about you can get worse at quarterback, way easier. You can get better in this league. And I mean, that's dead true. So I think that's where they're at with it.
Yeah. All right. So that leaves us with if the Lions aren't taking a quarterback, you're hoping that, 4 of the 5 teams in front of them take quarterbacks, pushing talent down the board.
Right.
One of the
Yes.
guys that seems like he is, a good chance of falling or being on the board at number 6 is Jalen Carter. What are your thoughts on the Lions taking him at 6?
I go back and forth on it, and I don't know. And this is one where I think Holmes has done a really good job of playing it close to the vest, including last week when he made the comment. Before I let you go on this one, by the way, I think he did a really good job here, and I like him better than I did, before he came in here, that kind of stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's ruled it out. Like Seattle's kind of done the same thing with a lot of their people. They've talked to people about no way, and then we'll see. We talked to them. We don't hate it. So, like I go back and forth, but I do say this, Sam. The stuff last week that came out, and they've known about the suspensions and the gambling stuff for more than just, last week, obviously. But like that does make me wonder, not that they have a shaky locker room, but like, are they all the way mature enough as a total foundation to handle a guy who's going to need your full, like, everybody's got to wrap their arms around Jalen Carter for a lot of reasons, I would think, if you bring him in here. So that does make me question it. And I don't know. Would I do it? Like, I don't know. I would have to really depend on what I heard in those interviews, and that's stuff that we just don't know. I probably wouldn't, honestly. I'd probably wait. I'd probably do something like Gonzalez is a good player. Witherspoon's a good player if you like him. If Wilson were to slip, I don't think he will. Like, I wouldn't do it, I don't think. I think I'd let somebody else take that risk.
Yeah, man. I think Jalen Carter is the best talent on the board in this draft, right? He checks every single one of the boxes: motor, physical talent. He can versatility. You can play him up and down the front. He is a potential star. But with the other needs that they have, and this is a theme that we'll hit on. We're talking to Nick Baumgardner from The Athletic this morning. I feel like you could fill other needs and pair that need with value at 6 in a better way, which is why I wouldn't do it. I won't beat them up if they take them, Nick, because I get it. I get why you would,
100%,
but I wouldn't.
I wouldn't either, and I think that that's going to be the end thing. I think Seattle will come to the same decision. And I've wondered, maybe I'm wrong, but I've wondered if would you have a trade market there for that? Would somebody be willing to come up? Would somebody be desperate? Say, we want to get in front of whoever. He's not going to get past Atlanta, or he's not going to get past Chicago. I don't know. Maybe that would happen, but I don't see them doing it at the end of the day for all the reasons we just talked about there. I don't think they need to. I don't think they need to do it. I think they're solid there, and I think you can, like you said, Sam. It's a lot of guys at 18, or if you want to move back off 18, that you could address that can do things similarly, not as good, but in similar fashion to what Carter can give you.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned you don't think Wilson will be on the board at number 6. I thought that was actually pretty safe. I didn't think Will Anderson would, but you think Wilson could be gone by 6?
So yeah, I think depending on how this all shakes out with the quarterbacks, right? Like, the Texans thing has been real, and that's been something that's now finally getting some run here. But like, the idea that they would just go with Mills until next year's class, with the whoppers at the top of the quarterbacks, the guys that we would agree on that you would mortgage more of your future for, they could do that. I mean, they're going to be bad anyway. They're not a good team, And I mean, would you want to bring CJ in here, who's going to have to deal with some learning stuff and some confidence and have him lead the ship of a bad team? I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. So if Will goes 2 or something, and then if Wilson's ahead of Carter, like, there's a lot that could happen in there. I think that Wilson could get bumped up. And so worst case scenario, you're back to the corners, I feel like. And that's kind of like, but would that be the worst thing in the world? Like, I mean, those are good players. So I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I actually like these. Look, I didn't criticize the Jeff Okudah pick, but I was never fired up about it. I wondered if
I wanted Simmons. But I am with you. I'm with you. I was like, I thought he'd be okay,
Yeah, and so but these guys are different. I think.
Yeah, I agree.
With Gonzalez, it's the athletic upside. With Devon Witherspoon, I thought he was fantastic for Illinois. Absolutely. So I'm curious what you kind of weigh those two, compare those two for me, and if it were you, who would you take at 6 if you were choosing between those guys?
It's really the question of, like, how much does Aaron Glenn get to say? Because I think Aaron Glenn would take Witherspoon. Like, I think everybody would agree with me that Aaron Glenn would be like, give me that guy. I don't care. Like, he is, like you said, Sam, I mean, the reason why I think people had whatever about Okudah is he played at Ohio State with all those great players, and he played in the system and this, that, and the other. No, Witherspoon is like a survivor. He'll play with anybody, anywhere, and make an impact. And I think Gonzalez, who transferred to Oregon, was great at Colorado, is similar. Like, these are just really, really good football players. If Aaron Glenn's making the pick, like, I feel like it'd be Witherspoon. If Brant Holmes is making the pick, saying, AG, you're not going to be here in a year, we're taking Gonzalez, I think it would be Gonzalez. Because I think he's the better mover, and he's just the better overall, athletic prospect, who I think he gets dinged because Devon is so tough that people think Witherspoon, or people think Gonzalez is soft, and it's like, no, he is not soft. I think he's a quiet worker who isn't afraid of much. His sister's an Olympian there. I mean, he's really good. So I think that both those guys I would be comfortable with.
You raised. Look, I will not debate with anyone Christian Gonzalez's superior athleticism. I mean,
Right.
he gives you prototypical size
It's everything, yeah.
plus speed. Like if you're drawing them up, they look more like
Right.
Devon Withers. I mean, more like Christian Gonzalez.
Christian,
But
yeah.
man, watching Devon Witherspoon, his physicality, his speed is good enough. Super high IQ. I think they got great coaching at Illinois under Ryan Wilson, and the Lions have experience with that. I mean, look at Kirby Joseph, who was a receiver, flips over to DB, and the Lions draft him in the 3rd round. And I remember thinking, is this a reach? And Kirby Joseph turns out to be a dude.
Yeah, right. I did the redraft and I had him at the end of the 1st. Like that. I mean, honest to God, if you go back and you look at how the safeties were last year. So yeah, it would not shock me if Devon Witherspoon, I thought this back in like January. I was like, would they take him at 6? And you just kept thinking about it. And you're like, yeah, I mean, like, I think they, maybe if you could try to move down and get him at 9, but then the more you think about it, you're like, I don't know how far he's going to fall. He's just, you can't watch his tape and not be like, this guy could help your team tomorrow. Like tomorrow, he's going to walk in the door and you're immediately, like I said earlier, survivor. Like these guys, they just find a way. They're not perfect, but any flaw they have, they're aware of, and they find ways to overcome it. Like he's a really good player.
Yeah, man, he's a baller, and
that
you don't always see that at the combine. You know what I'm saying?
No, right. For a guy who didn't even like run, like it's like okay, right. You remember him everywhere he goes. That's for sure.
Yeah. All right. So a guy I know you like. I've seen you say you like him at 18. But I saw Sports Illustrated. They just came out with one of their million mocks. Everyone has a million mocks, right?
Right.
They have the Lions taking Bijan Robinson at number 6. So, yeah, right. So, number 1, would you be in favor of the Lions taking Bijan Robinson at 6? I've seen some pundits say they think they like him as much, if not better, even if not more than Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
And clearly, you think you would, if he's on the board at 18, you take him. Make the case for Bijan Robinson.
Man, I don't know if I do it at 6. That's been my thing. Like the first pick with Bijan in my mind has been if you could move off of it and get down to the 10s, because I don't think he's going to be there at 18. I think he's going to be gone. But I don't know if I would do it at 6 because there's too many other things they could do, right? But the case for Bijan is you're going to get him on the rookie deal, right? I kind of look at it what the Cowboys just did with Elliott. He was there for 7 years, I think it was, and he rushed for like 8,000 yards. Like that. Okay, if you're going to give me this guy who we know is going to be a very good player, whether or not he's better than Saquon, we'll see. But he is at that level and at that tier of a guy who can run routes, not just the wheel out of the backfield or whatever. You can go out in the slot, you can motion him. He can run gap. He can run zone, inside, outside. He has that knee bend. He can wiggle out of a phone booth. He's smart, good teammate, will block. Like, I just think he's a guy that can play 3 downs beyond Derek Montgomery. If health stays, he fulfills the rookie deal. You're getting a max player all the way through. And I do think Bijan, like Saquon, if his health holds up, which now is in question, of course, would be a guy that the talent would suggest at the end of his rookie deal, he could be worth extending. And I think overall talent wise, I think he's a top 10 player in the draft. And I understand, positional situations and everybody's, situation is different and positional value, I should say. So he's not going to go there. I wouldn't think, but I don't think he's going to make it to 18. I think he's one of those guys. He's a little bit below Saquon, but he's above, what Jacobs will say. And both those guys are really good. So I just think they're good players.
So you wouldn't, if you took them, this isn't your replacement for DeAndre Swift, this is year 4.
Yeah, well, yeah, it would be. I mean, I think that's where I would go with it. It would be Bijan and Montgomery would be my guys, because the one thing I started this whole discussion in my mind, and I bared it out because when the year ended, and I really went back and thought about it, like the Lions left yards on the field last year. They did at rushing yards, as good as they were, and as good as Jamal was, and Swift was, at times he was good, and at times he wasn't. When you go back and you look at all the yards that the line produced, and you look at those, the Football Outsiders breaks that all down. And Ben Johnson, I think, ended up talking about this. Like in January, like we left a ton of yards on the field because we just really don't have a guy in this run game that can turn a play that's blocked for like 8 into a 70-yard touchdown. Like, or a 40-yard run or whatever. And I think he's right. And I think that they would not be opposed to exploring that if it presented itself. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So look, I think I think they do have that guy in DeAndre Swift when healthy. When
When
healthy.
healthy.
So
Well,
the
we haven't
problem
seen it.
is,
And I'm willing to ride out with you, but I would also say I could see the logic going the other way. If I could wait too. But you know what, Sam? They're going to take a guy later. There's too many good backs in this class. Like if you got Spears or something.
See, but
later.
that's another reason not to take him. See, I'm of the mind.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
The Lions aren't in position, in my opinion, to be taking luxuries. Does Bijan Robinson elevate your running game dynamic? So far and away and above what you would have with DeAndre Swift and David Montgomery, that he's worth basically taking a luxury pick this year, because he's a 3-back rotation. All those guys are going to play. His impact is going to be limited. Is it worth doing that in a year where you're talking about turning the corner and going to the playoffs? I'm just not with that, especially when I can take a running back later.
Especially that's where I usually land on it, and I end up being okay with it because I don't think he's going to be there at 18. But it's like we'll see what happens. But this year is the challenge. Because they're all going to be here, and it's like you're going to have to figure it out. And if you take Bijan, DeAndre's not going to be happy, and that rightly so, and all that. You're going to have to figure it out. He just lost Deuce, who he's very close with, right? So things are changing in there. And maybe you don't want to do that. Jamal's not there anymore. Maybe you don't want to rock the boat too much. But I would say this: in a year, I don't think he's a luxury pick. I think he is like an offensive foundation, a piece of your offense that you're like. I do think he's the type of guy that, because he's so versatile and because you can play him with another back on the field, you know what I mean? I think he could become one of those, like, okay, you got Amon-Ra, you got Jameson if he's healthy and he does all the things that you hope he does. And then you got Bijan, and you're like, good luck. Good, give me a tight end, and then I don't care the quarterback. Goff will look like a Pro Bowler every year at that point with that line. So that's sort of how I look at it, with that line always like leading my thought process, because I really think they're as good as any young line in the league. You know what I mean? I think that's going to hold out for a while here.
All right. So what are you thinking at 18 then there, Nick?
Yeah.
I mean, who do you like at 18?
Well, I mean, I think that it depends on what you do at 6, because I do like taking a corner at 18. I like Deonte Banks, the kid from Maryland, a lot if he's there. I don't hate that idea. I like playing the board. Like, what if Joey Porter were to fall? I don't think he will, but what if that were to happen? I know they would like him. I mean, not at 6, but I know they would like a lot about Joey Porter. I think Aaron Glenn will be able to work with him. Cansey's one that I go back and forth on. They do have, they do have the Holmes talked about his length situation just the other day, or not vaguely, but he was there when they drafted Aaron Donald. I mean, it's like, it was there. I mean, he would do it, I think. So we'll see about that one. But the other guy I think about a lot for them, and I think you could also like move back and do this if you could pull it off, would be Brian Brisset from Clemson. And I know people are like, well, he's injured, and Holmes loves those injured defensive linemen and all this. And I'm like, I get that. But like Brisset, to me, Sam, and I'd like to see your take on this, because you know this. We've been talking about that guy for like 8 years. He was a number 1 overall recruit, huge pressure on him coming out. And, he got the injury. Then his sister passes away, all this personal tragedy stuff. We have not seen his best ball. And I think you're going to get a motivated, like hungry, already edgy player, even more so when you take him. I think he could really outperform his spot. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I'm curious on your thought of it.
Yeah, I think he could too. One of the things that I look for is fit next to Aleem McNeil, who, if folks who listen to this show know, I was all over Aleem McNeil before that draft. Like, man, they could get to. I went to watch him in high school. I watched him play tight end, fullback, linebacker, defensive end in the same game. In the same game, it was like, this dude is going to be a guy. That he turned out to be a guy to outperform that where they picked him in the draft.
Yep.
But Levi Onwuzurike, I don't know if I said his name right.
Yeah.
Putting those two guys next to each other, getting you an upfield, gap shooting, pressure guy would be ideal next to Aleem McNeil. That's not Brian Brisset.
No,
it is Elijah Cansey. Cansey would fit that role in a great way. So that's kind of how I look at it. Like, I like Brian. I think he's going to be a good pro. But I think with what the Lions have, Cansey might be a better
I would agree with that. I think Cansey would be my guy if he's there. And again, like that's one what people have been. I saw he didn't take any visits, and to me that's like that's either his decision or teams are like we're not giving our hand on what we think of this dude because it was all over the place on him. Back a couple months ago, and it just keeps going up and up. I don't know where he's going to fall, but I'm probably with you. He would be the guy at 18. If they could move back, I would love it if they could get like Brise in the 20s. I think that would be amazing value because I think that you could move him around and do different things, and he could help free up Aiden sometimes, in certain situations too. I think so. But yeah, I'm with Gansey. I don't care about the length. I think he's a destructive dude.
I do too. All right, so you did not say, and I'm happy to hear this, tight end in the first round.
No. Chris Burke is all over that train. I keep telling him, no, don't do that. Take one later. If you want to take one later. Darnell's not going to go, and that's the guy I would take, Darnell Washington, for the line. Okay. I think he fits so well. I think he's another tackle who would just, and I think you're going to get value, in the pass game. He's not going to be an 80 catch guy, but I think he's going to like Campbell. Darnell Washington is Dan Campbell. Like that's what he is. When you talk to people back 20 years ago, when Dan Campbell got to Texas A&M as a 220-pound basketball player, running up and down the field, smashing people over, like that's Darnell. Take him in the second round. Do not do it. Don't do it in the first. They just traded TJ. You don't need to do that. I think it's a by committee. They're better that way. You know what I mean? Like that's what I would stick with.
Yeah, it's just tight end to me in the first 2 rounds is not a value pick. All the best tight ends were picked 3rd round or later. All the best tight ends in the league. No. So do your due diligence and find a guy.
This is a freaky year, though, Sam. This is a deep, deep year for tight ends. And we know that. I mean, they're like Schoonmaker at any other year would go in second round. I don't know if he's going to go in the top 100 because there's so many guys. You know what I mean? It's a deep year. So to your point, you definitely can wait.
So what do you think of the 2 Iowa guys? Because I've seen Van Ness be projected to the Lions at 18 in some mocks, and I've seen Jack Campbell projected to them in the 2nd round, but I'm starting to see him show up late in some first round mocks. What do you think of those 2 guys?
So Van Ness, I think, is not going to be there at 18, and he would be if he was there at 18. I would definitely consider that because of the same thing. Like he could be the guy you're talking about. Like he could play over a guard right now while he learns to be an edge, and he can just knock the hell out of people while Aline does his thing next to, and you don't have to teach him much right away. I don't think he's going to be there, though. I think he's going to be gone. And Campbell is like, I don't know. Like that's a tough one for me. I don't know if he's going to go in the first round. This is a weird linebacker class, and it's not a elite one. He's like the best traditional linebacker, I think, probably on the border one of. And I think he was undervalued, but I think people are now like overcorrecting just a tad there. Like, I feel like there's some like projecty, like guys like Malcolm that were like a little bit undersized or a little bit like this, that like Dan Henley, the kid from Washington. There's too many good ones later. I think I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, you know what? I was a bit iffy on Jack Campbell as well, and then I saw him.
I like him.
I saw him run a 4.6. That was my biggest question.
I like him, but also, do I like him that much? I don't know. I think he's smart. So, I think he's, I don't know.
Let's spend the final couple minutes on the Michigan guys. You already talked about Luke Schoonmaker, but DJ Turner had a great combine. Obviously Mozzie Smith is starting to pop up in some mocks. What do you think of the Michigan contingent in this draft?
Yeah, Mozzie could absolutely go in the first round. That has been one that I was bummed to not see him do any stuff at the combine before I broke my wrist and had to leave. I was bummed to not see him do anything at the combine. He didn't do any of the jumps. I don't know if he was hurt or what happened there, but I thought that would have really helped him. I thought if he would have gone to the combine and just lit it up, we'd have been talking about Mozzie right now in the teens or late teens or whatever. He could have jumped. Maybe he will. And that's not something I would rule out. I think he's a guy that you really have to watch a lot of tape on because it was a slow process for him, as we know, right? At Michigan, it took a minute for Mozzie to get it all there. But like, I just went back and watched him and Steve Avila from the TCU, and it's like, man, this is a battle. Like, and Mozzie's winning more than he's losing, right? So wouldn't shock me if he sneaks in. Turner is a second rounder and no worse to me. That speed and everything else. And I know people ding him on he relies too much on the speed and gets sloppy with the technique, but I'm like, whatever. He's 4.27. I don't care. Like, it's fine. And then Oluwatimi is also the guy that, like, I know why he's fallen down boards. I understand it. There's scouts that question He doesn't bully people too much. He doesn't get a lot of separation in the run game off the line of scrimmage as much as you'd like. But I'm always like, whatever. Like to me, him and Avila are like the two toughest linemen in this draft. Like they are the guys who figure it out no matter what. I don't think you're going to find a smarter one than Olu. Like what he was able to absorb here in that short of an amount of time and play better than Vastardis played. And Vastardis was very good, like in 1 year is nuts. Like I think he's a guy he's a figure it out guy. Like Olu is going to start somewhere next year, I think. And if you get him in the 5th, you get him in the 5th, right? But I don't know where he's going to slide, but he's definitely going to get drafted.
Great stuff, Nick. You can find all of his coverage over at The Athletic. Does a terrific job. And I didn't disagree with you as much as I thought I would, Nick. So
well, only the Bijan, man. I'm just not doing him at 6, man. But hey, I'm not going to hate it if they get him some way, somehow.
Right.
Yes.
I got you. Well, Nick, thanks a lot for your time. To the rest of you, we'll see you tomorrow here.